Greetings, Trekkers. The captain of the Enterprise's D&D is one of the most principled individuals we've ever seen in the big chair, and we're taking a look at his best and worst decisions on this edition of...
Yeah, it's the best five, worst five, no one has seen. Yeah, it's the best five, worst five Trek's ever seen.
Jean-Luc Picard, the most British Frenchman ever, is a decorated Starfleet officer who had to make some tough calls in 10 seasons of television and 4 movies. It was actually hard to find enough bad calls to fill a worst 5 in this category, so with the exception of the worst 2, I admit I'm nitpicking a bit here. Much of what we have to talk about is bending or following the Prime Directive. We'll base the good and bad on the outcomes of those involved and the wider universe around them. As usual, starting at 5th worst, silencing dissent. Ensign Ro, in the episode of that same name, was herself forced to make a series of tough decisions. An officer that's been caught up in drama in the past that saw her court-martialed. In an attempt to redeem herself, she took on a mission from Admiral Kennelly to bring a group of radical Bajorans to justice for attacking the Federation. After realizing she was in deep and trying to salvage the situation under orders from the Admiral, Picard refuses to listen to her report on why she seemingly went rogue. Not giving an officer, even a troubled one, a chance to explain their actions is unbecoming of the captain of the Federation flagship. Thankfully, Picard's best friend is also friends with Ro, and forces a sit-down to rectify the situation and bring light to a Cardassian ploy the Admiral in question fell into. For a man that's always been willing to listen to the opposition, this wasn't a shining moment in his command. Number 4. Buying rope in bulk. Here's me taking a position I don't personally believe, but is objectively an odd decision for a starship captain. During the events of The Outcast, Picard goes to Riker and does at least warn him that if he tries to interfere in the affairs of a non-Federation aligned world, that he can't protect him. Okay, good advice for your first officer. However, in the immediate aftermath, he gives Will all the rope he could ever need to hang himself with. They stay at Janai longer than the mission requires, and after Riker fails to get to this week's love interest before they get lobotomized, Picard asks nonchalantly if their business is done. He gave Riker time for unofficial business on official time, and while I am personally glad he had the chance to intervene on a class of people that are trodden on, it's a weird judgment call for Picard. Number 3. Abetting adultery. Arranged marriages are one thing, but when you force a sentient being to travel as luggage in the cargo bay, don't be surprised when the captain of the ship rightly calls you out for violating the minimum standards of decency. While this was a good thing Picard did, and even another assigning Data to watch over her due to psychic hormones that cause men around her to get weird, he goes backwards later in the episode The Perfect Mate by then spending time with Kamala to protect the crew. Despite Jean-Luc's stone face and don't give a hoot attitude, even he finds that her natural charm is too much for him to overcome. She does give him permission to love, which I think helps him through his experience in the Inner Light soon after. He should have recused himself and had Data be her keeper. While never seen on screen, his final exchange with the ambassador seems to imply that he may have had an indiscretion with another man's fiancée, and that's not a good look for a Starfleet captain. Number 2. Just following orders. It was probably his experience during Journey's End that emboldened Picard later in life as an admiral to offer his resignation in protest for not helping the Romulans evacuate. Given that he gently attempted to push back against his orders, it begs the question, why didn't the most principled captain we may have ever seen not plan to walk away based on some of the most immoral orders he's ever been handed? I mean, the answer is obviously that we then wouldn't have had an end TNG, or 4 mostly mediocre to bad movies thereafter. Even in a command structure where you sometimes have to follow orders you don't agree with, if you're asked to commit acts that don't comport with even the values of the organization you're part of, it's your personal moral duty to refuse and walk away. And Picard's worst decision at number 1? Letter of the law. For a captain that once told a group of scantily clad sex addicts to take their punishment zones and pound flowers, completely ignoring the Prime Directive, he sure didn't look at it on a global scale when the Barallan's atmosphere dissipated, making the planet uninhabitable. The purpose of the Prime Directive is to protect civilizations from the influence of societies that are vastly technologically superior to them. But if there isn't going to be a civilization to influence, on a planet that will likely never support life, and have another life form evolve to take the place of the current higher life forms, then I'd argue that this actually flies in the face of the spirit of the Prime Directive. Given that in the past, Picard reluctantly decided to help a single small child calling for help, and even helped heal the natural disaster on a planet that at least might have been capable of supporting future life, this decision is bizarre and doesn't gel with other decisions made by one of our favorite captains. As we replace Picard's worst organic heart with the best of artificial devices, if you're enjoying the content, please consider a like and subscribe. At fifth best, shared strength. When the powers that be were finally able to sidestep Roddenberry's rule that no TOS characters have a major part in an episode, Picard got to offer up a piece of himself to one of the Federation's most famed ambassadors in his waning years and final peace deal. Mind melding with Sarek took its toll on Jean-Luc, driving him to rage and tears, but he saw the value in furthering peace in the galaxy. He also gained a new view of the universe, and this is around the time he becomes a less wooden character, exploring more facets of himself, ironically by melding with a logical race that shows no emotions. Number 4. Ace in the hole. While Sisko is probably the most tactically minded captain we've seen, Picard was no slouch. When it became clear in The Defector that the facts weren't facting, he called in the Federation's friend at this point in history, the Klingons, who hate the Romulans far more. He violates the neutral zone to find out if the Romulans are breaking the Treaty of Alderaan, and just when they make their duplicity known and think they've got the upper hand, Picard turns over his hole card, which are 3 cloaked Klingon birds of prey, ready to make this a fair fight. The look on Picard's face when Tomalak realizes his ploy has been foiled is priceless. Number 3. Just say no. There is absolutely no way that the episode Symbiosis is not an extension of the late 80s anti-drug campaign spearheaded by Nancy Reagan. Also within it is one of the most nuanced interpretations of the Prime Directive we've ever seen. Picard seeing a planet that's been beholden to addiction by another determines he cannot interfere with their trade deals, but also that it prevents him from giving the parts they need to keep their trade ships running. Where Starfleet's General Order 1 is usually presented in a black and white way almost every time we see it in action, it's refreshing to see such a varied use of it to try and low-key intervene in a planet's well-being without actually intervening. Number 2. Flipping the script. One of Jean-Luc Picard's strengths is historical quotes, usually coming from classic literature of our current past. However, maybe his best use of a quote comes from in-universe during the Drumhead. When retired Admiral Nora Satie comes to investigate an intelligence theft by a Klingon exchange officer that may have led to an accident in engineering, it quickly devolves into a witch hunt. Even after it's discovered the accident was just that, an accident caused by faulty materials, that doesn't stop her from investigating everyone that may have ever forgotten to dot an I on official paperwork, going so far as to put Picard on the witness stand to berate him in front of top brass, mainly for the purpose of staying relevant in her waning years. Picard turns words that seem increasingly pertinent in our own world, spoken by her own father, back on her, and shows her for the fake she really is. Sometimes words are far more powerful than phasers. And Picard's best decision at number 1? Life in all its forms. Starfleet's primary mission is to seek out new life and new civilizations, even if that life was created from within. The uniqueness of Data and several other Soong-type androids may not rise to the ranks of a civilization, but the nature of their sentience is called into question by Bruce Maddox in Measure of a Man. Even when Data is ready to give up and simply resign from Starfleet, Picard won't let him lower himself and prove Maddox correct about his lack of rights. I mean, if he somehow doesn't have the right to resign, how did he have the right to sign up for the Academy in the first place? Through passionate courtroom litigation, Jean-Luc shows us for the first time how much he cares about the rights and well-being of all by standing up for Data as his defense counsel. This started a pattern of standing up for the rights of life in all forms that we see again in episodes like The Quality of Life. Picard's decisions have some of the most far-ranging effects of any Starfleet captain we know of, and the galaxy is a better place for it. What's your favorite Picard decision?